Pull yourself up a chair and join us at the Energy Roundtable.
Welcome to Energy Roundtable Week 2. I'm here with my Energy Radio podcast co-host, Lisa Barber. Lisa, welcome.
Good afternoon, Matt. How are you today?
I'm good. It's beautiful. It was sunny, and climate change is hard in effect here in Southern Ontario. So Let's get hard at it. This is Energy Roundtable, where we debate the news and notes of the week in energy. I'll take a first start. I picked up Larry Fink's 2021 letter to CEO. So Larry Fink, for those who don't know, he is the CEO of BlackRock, which is a large investment company. And he was famous for last year around this time articling this letter to CEOs about, their fiduciary, their financial responsibility as it relates to investment in clean initiatives. And he did it again this year and really was looking back at the scope of COVID and how that has impacted and accelerated, I think, a lot of our decisions around making financial investments with climate and climate risk in mind. Lisa, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Obviously, when we think about climate and just the way that things are kind of going, and some of the companies that have invested, some of the companies that haven't. Arguably, you could say the companies that haven't, are they going to be left behind? Is that going to affect their value propositions? What does that kind of look like? So, it's interesting.
I'm a big thumbs up on this one, because what I love about this is it's leadership, right? He's taking a stance. He's saying, we're going to do this. We're going to do it. But it's not just blind leadership. It's like, no, here's the reasons why we need to do this. It's for the betterment of, and the stats show it. It's not just, a feel-good story. It's based on science. It's based on math. But it's also a courageous decision to say we're moving our money, and we're moving our money where, climate is being, and he's also courageous in calling other people out on it. He's saying, listen, girls and boys, this is where I'm going. And you can decide, to get on the train or not. And so I'm excited about the leadership that's being demonstrated here, and going to be an exciting space. The energy space is going to be exciting. So very good. You go.
Cool. Well, the next article here I found, just for our listeners, in case they're wondering where we're getting some of these articles. This one is from MTU's website. It's called From Potatoes to Power. And it's basically about a Turkish foodstuffs producer. I'm going to get the name wrong, but it's Saydabi. Anyways, they process around 7,000 metric tons of potatoes a year. They sell them frozen to a wide variety of forms, obviously like French fries. And they basically use the skins of the potatoes, and they convert that on-site through waste into biogas, and they run that through a CHP system. And that's producing 9 million kilowatts of electricity per year, which is then fed to the grid. What's interesting is I couldn't get any sense from the article of whether they're actually using that power on site, but it sounds as though they're just exporting it. They're getting about 13 cents per kilowatt. So it might just be, and I don't know what the power prices are like in Turkey, but maybe they're getting more, value for their money by just exporting the power. But, in light of some of the RNG projects that have been coming up across Canada and the US, the whole idea of converting waste to energy, I thought it was a pretty cool article. So, and didn't know you could do it with potato peels either. So,
well, I grew up a latchkey kid, and so I'd come home, and I was the oldest of the three boys, and we were a meat and potatoes family. And so I knew when I came home, I had to peel a pot's worth of potatoes, and I knew how to cut them up and get them on the stove and get it boiled and add the salt and prick it to make sure it's done. And so I dealt with a lot of potato peels, and I know mine weren't going to energy, but glad to hear that they can and they are. And it's exciting, and I'd love to know a bit more of the technical of what are they doing with, is the heat recovery going back into the process? And
that it is. They didn't specify exactly what part of the process, but it is definitely going back to their facility.
So are you thumbs up or thumbs down on this story?
Well, I'm giving it a thumbs up, but what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm giving it a thumbs up, a calculated thumbs up, as the gearhead in me and somebody who grew up in biogas. I'd love to know more about the story and more about the technology. But yeah, I mean, the overall story is a thumbs up. So my next story is it's a little bit closer to home, although I've never met the individual, but the story is from smartenergydecisions.com. So look them up. It is an announcement that Jigar Shah is going to lead the $40 billion Department of Energy clean tech loan effort. And this one caught my eye because Jigar Shah was the host of quite a large podcast, and I'm drawing a blank now. Do you know the name of the podcast that he was? I have it on my. I think it's called the Energy Gang. This is embarrassing. I should have had this in front of me, but yeah, he was a podcast host. Obviously, he did many other things. He was the president of Generate Capital, and he founded Sun Edison. So what I like about this story, obviously, there's the podcast angle, but here's somebody who's come from business and who's come from entrepreneurship, and so now the federal government in the U.S. is going to do something, but they're putting somebody who's built businesses at the forefront of it, and to me, that's exciting because it's somebody who knows what the challenges are of developing technology, developing projects. That to me is quite exciting.
Well, I'll give it a thumbs up from my end, if that's okay. I think that sounds exciting.
And that's very exciting. Although I give myself a thumbs down for not knowing the name of the podcast that Jigar Shah was the host of. I'll get it in a minute while you do your next clip.
Okay, that sounds good. So, the next story that I found is Minister Wilkinson made an announcement to provide $40.8 million of funding to upgrade schools. So the funding is coming from carbon pricing proceeds. The reason I find this story pretty interesting is, obviously it's helping at a number of schools. Some of the projects that they've mentioned already, there's some roof and insulation replacements, there's some boiler replacements, HVAC control systems, but many of the upgrades will actually be made to improve air quality. So when we think about, the pandemic that we are still in, and, as we think of, as I was on the treadmill this morning, I was reminded that today, I guess, is National Day of Observance. The government has designated it today to commemorate the people who lost their lives and the significant impacts that have been felt, by COVID-19. So if I think about some of the students that have had to be at school during this pandemic, and while there's been a lot of virtual learning, the pandemic has taught us a lot of things, obviously, and if better air quality combined with energy efficiency, can be made to improve the lives of students. Hey, that sounds like a good news story to me. So I will give it a thumbs up on my end.
I'm back and forth on this. I want to give it a thumbs down only because I live in a world of conspiracy theories sometimes, and I think this is because it's federal money going to schools, which is a provincial thing. In Canada, we have a liberal government federally, we have a conservative government provincially. So part of me says this is some kind of political machination saying you're not going to take care of it, we're going to do it for you. So, but ultimately, it's a thumbs up from me, and here's why. Because it is taking care of, when you think about energy and energy conservation, it's really, we need to tackle it at point of use first, and then at distribution, and then at, point of generation. And so I think, for us at CEM, we often focus on the generation piece, but this is really exciting because it's tackling it at the energy use piece. And so for that, setting aside politics, that I give it 2 thumbs up as a good news story, and it's taxes going back to the taxpayers, right?
Yeah, and actually Ontario, I think, got the bulk of that funding. I'm just looking at this here. So a total of $60 million was allocated. $2 million went to New Brunswick, 12 to Saskatchewan. Ontario is $40.8 million, and $5 million to Manitoba. So we got the bulk of it.
I wonder, somebody's going to write in and say, well, those provinces got it because they don't have their own carbon tax plan or something. There's probably something there in terms of why those provinces got it. So hopefully somebody calls in and corrects me. So Energy Gang was the name of the podcast that Jigger Shaw was the co-host since 2013. Can you believe that? So we've been doing this now for 2 years. They've been doing it for 8. So congrats to Jigger Shaw in his new position. All the best, and my humblest apologies for forgetting the name of the podcast. So we're now going to try something new. We're going to invite our content creator, videographer, all-around cool guy, Mr. Mark Charbonneau. Mark, welcome to the Energy Roundtable.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Sorry.
Hello there, Mark.
Loud and
How's
clear.
it going?
Good.
Good.
What are we
So
doing?
I've dubbed this the Face Off, and it's just I don't know. We'll try it out. It's a kind of a fun little game where I give you guys a topic. I remain neutral. And I just listen. One person takes the pro side, one person takes the con side, and you have about 2 minutes to give your position on it, and then I choose a winner, and then the winner just gets bragging rights, I guess.
Now, is this for clarity? Is this 2 minutes like first presidential debate in 2020 or second presidential debate?
I would say neither, because they were both chaos, right? So
I will respect Lisa's 2 minutes if she will respect my 2 minutes.
although I think the second one went a little bit better, if I remember correctly.
Right.
The second one was the better one.
Yes.
Somewhat.
Yeah, somewhat, marginally.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think what we'll do is we'll take the topic of, because it's current, is COVID-19's effect on the workplace going forward. Once this starts to dissipate and everyone gets back to work, so that will be Lisa. You will take the con on this, on the negative aspects, and then Matt, you will take the pro. Right? Is that what I said initially, or did I mix that up?
No, you got it right.
Okay. Good.
Who
wants to?
Well, you're the host, Mark. Who goes first?
Okay, so let's have Lisa go first.
All right. So when I was thinking about this, actually, I was thinking more so about, like, in my mind, COVID's not finished. So, from a con perspective, I'm going to try to attack it that way, in the sense that, yes, we're learning some things. We're not vaccinated. So I'll kind of keep that in mind from, that perspective. But I think some of the cons have been, certainly a lack of personal connection with colleagues. We obviously haven't had that, and I think that's going to still kind of move forward into the future. There's going to be a lot of workplaces that are going to decide not to come back to the office right away. So I think that piece is going to continue. Increased operating costs for offices that we're not using, or equipment we're not using. Some people have got leased cars. Some people have got own cars that are depreciating, company vehicles, as well as, of course, printers and faxes. And, well, does anyone use a fax, though? Never mind. Never the fax piece, but
it's always about the dollars and cents.
That's always about the dollars and cents. The other piece that I think is still going to affect people potentially is their mental well-being, and how that's affecting productivity. I think that's going to continue still for a little while. Certainly, although I'm hoping that this is going to change, but globally, fewer sales opportunities. We've seen that. Our business is ramping up, which is great. Lots of people's businesses are ramping up, which is awesome. But I think that's going to potentially kind of still continue, as people are a little bit scared to deploy cash or capital. Less grants for other projects in support of COVID economic recovery. I think that's going to be a big thing. Obviously, we're still hearing about grants, but I think that there could have been a much larger grants available otherwise. And then I think there's still going to be, as we move forward into the future, a bit of a fear and anxiety in terms of, whether it's safe to come back. And
that's 2 minutes. So we'll have to discount your last comment there. We'll have to discount it.
Were you really timing it?
Yeah, I was actually.
Okay.
Wow. So it was around 2 minutes ish.
All right. So Lisa caveated hers, and I'll do the same. Mark knows me well, and so he was intentional. All I'll say is he was intentional about picking who was pro and who was con. But for the sake of the face-off, for our Canadian friends, or our American friends, that's a nod to what happens at center ice in a hockey game. For the sake of the face-off, I think COVID will have very positive impacts. And what we mean by COVID in the workplace is, in our case, working remotely. I think it'll have very positive impacts. First and foremost, on Fridays, I no longer have to wear pants. That's important, and that's a good thing. But I think it's challenged a lot of our norms, and it's, what's exciting is that we're having meetings and conversations face to face that were emails before or were phone calls. And so over COVID, we built a big project in Windsor that, I had meetings with the construction sites way more than, if I had to drive down the 4-hour drive down the 401. And so I think that's a positive thing. I think we will cut down on travel costs because there was some travel that was nefarious and not required. And, I know, Lisa, you're worried about not any grants, but, I have my utmost faith and belief in Justin Trudeau and his great reset. And so the funding is going to come, and there's going to be this reset from COVID and climbing out of that. And that's going to be a green fund, and that's going to be, on the backs of those projects, we're going to climb out of this. So I like the flexibility that comes with the post-COVID workplace. And I think it's gonna leave a legacy for I work from home. I see my kids for breakfast. I see my kids for dinner. That's a positive thing for somebody who's got you have a little one now at home, Lisa. That's a positive thing. So I think overall it's going to be a positive thing on the workplace. That's my pro COVID in the workplace stance. Lisa, feel free to challenge me on it though.
Well, no, I agree with everything you said. I think it all makes sense. And, I think that COVID has certainly taught us all a lot. There are certainly some huge negative consequences to, obviously, the pandemic. A lot of us have experienced it. But, I, for one, similar to you, Matt, love the idea of working from home on Fridays and, being there with my family to have lunch and seeing our little one, during coffee breaks. But, I do feel for a lot of the people who have had a lot of mental challenges and, experience a lot of that mental tension, throughout the duration. People have lost their jobs. So it's, I think, not to get onto your side, but as a pro, a lot of people have learned, how to be a little more empathetic towards people during this time, and I think that's a huge benefit that's going to help us out. And so yeah. Anyways, that's I think there's good pros and cons to it. That's for sure.
So what I've heard so far is that Fridays is going to be a work from home day going forward. That's what I heard you both say.
Didn't you know that, Mark?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
This is you've pulled out inside information on the future work from home policy of CEM Engineering. I'm in big trouble with HR now as a result because I've let the cat out of the bag. But I think this is not really a stance one way or the other. I do personally believe that we are created and are designed best to work, in person as much as we can. I think if there's collaboration and synergy that happens, I think that's a good thing. And at the same time, to Lisa's point, people have learned empathy. People have learned that, we can bust up the norms and we can get to some level of flexibility. And so hopefully we can get the best of both worlds moving forward. So
I agree. I think community is very important. So for that reason, I think Lisa is going to be crowned the winner because she had the stance that I think the majority of us and the majority of the people watching would consider. So
I have to say it was actually really hard for me to do the cons because I'm generally speaking a very positive person. So I'm always thinking about the positives and not the negatives. But
yeah,
anyway.
that's why I lined it up the way I did because I know it would be hard for both of you.
Well, thanks, Mark, for doing that. I am, because I lost and I hate to lose, I will be back next week for round 2 of Face Off. Looking forward to the question. For those who are listening, we don't get the question. We get a bit of a heads up, but we don't get our position ahead of time. That is live and in person. So this has been week 2 of the Energy Roundtable. Thank you to both Lisa Barber and Mark Charbonneau. My name is Matt Lensink, and thank you again for joining us. Always welcome your feedback, your comments. How can we make this better? And my sincerest apologies to Jigger Shaw. Have a great week.